In a time when kingdoms weren't measured by maps, but by the number of blood-stained spears, a man emerged who changed the face of Africa forever. An outcast child, born without a right to the throne. He grew up in the shadows, learning that survival belonged not to the noblest, but to the ruthless. He didn't inherit a kingdom. He forged it from the ashes of villages, from the cries of the fleeing, and from the silence of the dead. With a single fist, he reshaped warfare, transforming scattered tribes into an invincible fighting machine, unleashing a storm that shook the south of the continent, its echoes still reverberating today. Was Shaka a hero who united his people against chaos, or a tyrant who built an empire of fear and blood? This isn't just the story of a warrior, it's the story of a man who became a legend, who taught Africa the meaning of power, and a nation born from his sword. Welcome to this new video in our series on the greatest kings in history. Shaka Zulu was born around the summer of 1787 in the Zulu kingdom of Natal, in what is now northeastern South Africa. He was the illegitimate son of Senzanga, the chief of the Zulu clan, and Nandi, a woman of the neighbouring Langeni clan. This status led to the ostracization of both Shaka and his mother during his childhood. After a period of wandering, they found refuge among the Mthethwa people, where Shaka grew up and quickly distinguished himself as a warrior of exceptional ability. In his youth, Shaka joined the Mthethwa military system, and King Dingiswayo recognized his talent, although he expressed concern over Shaka's tendency toward excessive violence, most notably during a raid in which Shaka disobeyed his commander's orders. Nevertheless, this early military experience laid the foundation for his later rise to power. At the time, the Zulu were not a unified people, but rather a collection of small clans whose economy and society depended almost entirely on cattle herding. Cattle functioned as a source of food, a measure of wealth, a medium of exchange, and the basis of marriage, social hierarchy, and religious life. Society was organized around residential units known as kraals, each clan ruled by a chief known as an Inkosi, within the broader cultural network of Bantu-speaking peoples of sub-Saharan Africa. As population and livestock numbers increased in the late 18th century, competition for land and grazing intensified, leading to growing conflict between the Zulu clans and neighbouring groups, most notably the powerful Ndwandwe kingdom to the north. In this volatile context, Shaka's father died in 1816, and his half-brother Sigujana was named successor. With the support of Dingiswayo and the Mthethwa, Shaka overthrew Sigujana through assassination and seized power as chief of the Zulu. This alliance collapsed shortly thereafter when Dingiswayo was captured and executed by the Ndwandwe king Zwide in 1817. Shaka subsequently inherited leadership of a broad tribal confederation and entered into a full-scale war with the Ndwandwe. The conflict reached a critical point at the Battle of Khokli Hill in 1818, where Shaka defeated a numerically superior force through innovative tactics and strict organizational discipline. The war concluded with the Battle of the Mlatuze River in 1819, which effectively destroyed Ndwandwe power and confirmed Zulu dominance in the region. Shaka thus founded a powerful centralized Zulu kingdom extending from Natal toward the borders of present-day Mozambique. The foundation of Shaka's success lay in a sweeping military and social revolution. He replaced the long-throwing spear with a short stabbing weapon, Ikalwa, designed for close combat, introduced the bull horns formation for encirclement, enforced rigorous discipline and instituted a merit-based promotion system rather than one determined by lineage. He also reorganized society to serve the needs of the state and the army, enabling unprecedented levels of mobilization. While Shaka was reshaping the balance of power in southeastern Africa, European influence, particularly British, was consolidating at the Cape of Good Hope, and Boer settlers began migrating northward, laying the groundwork for future confrontation between the Zulu world and colonial powers. During the 1820s, the Zulu kingdom entered a new phase marked by increased contact with Europeans, especially Boers and traders from the Cape Colony. The first signs of this contact appeared in 1822, when Francis Farewell and other traders initiated commercial relations with the Zulu in the Natal region. In 1824, Port Natal, Durban, became an official trading post, establishing the first permanent European presence. Much of what is known about Shaka's reign derives from this period, as many surviving accounts were written by European contemporaries who lived at or near his court. Among the most notable were Nathaniel Isaacs and Henry Francis Finn, both of whom resided among the Zulu for several years. Finn provided medical assistance to Shaka and in return received land and adopted Zulu customs, including polygamy. Isaacs's writings, published in 1836, formed the foundation of the earliest European narrative of Shaka and his kingdom, despite their evident biases. Despite these external contacts, Shaka's principal challenges remained internal, particularly conflicts with neighbouring Bantu groups. He continued to expand his state through a combination of warfare and diplomacy, incorporating defeated communities into his kingdom. During the 1820s, several neighbouring polities were absorbed through alliance rather than conquest and transformed into tributary states, without reducing the central role of warfare in his system. This expansion, however, came at an immense human cost. The period became known as the Afrikaan, the crushing or the dispersal, characterized by widespread displacement, destruction and mass death. Estimates of total casualties range from 1 to 2 million people, with Shaka's campaigns playing a significant role. His wars alone are estimated to have caused the deaths of at least 100,000 individuals, with villages destroyed, elderly people and children killed, and survivors forcibly incorporated into the Zulu military system. Persistent violence eventually produced serious internal fractures. Several senior commanders broke away to establish independent polities, including Mzili Kazi, who founded the Ndebele Kingdom, and Zwangendaba, who migrated northward and created his own realm. Nevertheless, by 1825, Shaka ruled a vast territory of approximately 30,000 square kilometers, governing nearly 250,000 Zulu and hundreds of thousands of subject peoples through a centralized system of tribute based on cattle and goods. As resistance increased, neighbouring groups began adopting Zulu-style military methods. Shaka suffered his first major defeat in 1824 during a campaign against the Mpondo, remembered as the Watermelon Campaign. This setback had a profound psychological impact and contributed to escalating brutality in subsequent years. Violence peaked in 1826 with an extermination campaign against the Kwabe, conducted with no clear political objective beyond mass killing. The brutality was so extreme that even Shaka's mother reportedly expressed horror at his actions. Shaka relocated his capital to Kwabe territory and later founded his final capital, Kwabulawayo, in 1828, literally meaning the place of death, a stark reflection of his rule. Kwabulawayo was an immense political and military centre compared to other Zulu settlements. At its core stood the Isigodlo, the royal palace and harem, which also functioned as the seat of government. Although physically simple, court life was governed by rigid ritual and hierarchy, resembling in some respects the formal discipline of feudal European courts. By the 1820s, the Zulu court exhibited a highly structured system of authority that later British officials were able to comprehend, despite cultural differences. Over time, however, this court became psychologically oppressive, as Shaka grew increasingly authoritarian. Shaka's instability intensified following the death of his mother Nandi in October 1827. Her loss plunged him into deep grief, accompanied by extreme measures such as enforcing harsh mourning rituals, punishing those deemed insufficiently sorrowful, and disrupting essential economic activities, leading to food shortages and localized famine. Some historians argue that later accounts exaggerated these actions to legitimize his assassination. In September 1828, Shaka was assassinated in a conspiracy led by his half-brothers Dingane and Mlangana, with the backing of influential members of the royal household. He died at approximately 41 years of age, having built a powerful and unified kingdom in just 12 years. Dingane seized power, but soon initiated violent purges against relatives, weakening the state. Under Dingane, the Zulu kingdom faced mounting pressure from the northward migrating Boers, who later established the short-lived state of Natalia. After his defeat by the Voortrekkers under Andries Pretorius, Dingane was killed, and his brother Mpande became king in 1840. Mpande's reign brought relative stability, particularly after his alliance with the British following the annexation of Natalia in 1842, which preserved Zulu autonomy until his death in 1872. With the accession of Mpande's son, Cetshwayo, tensions with the British Empire re-emerged amid its expanding presence in southern Africa, driven by the discovery of diamonds and gold. These tensions culminated in the Anglo-Zulu War of 1879, remembered for battles such as Isandlwana, where the Zulu inflicted one of the most severe defeats ever suffered by a British colonial force. The war ended 6 months later with a decisive British victory at Ulundi and the effective destruction of the Zulu kingdom. After the war, Zulu independence was dismantled and Cetshwayo ruled only nominally. Zululand was formally annexed by the British Empire in 1887, marking the end of the state founded by Shaka, one that, despite surviving nearly 50 years after his death, ultimately succumbed to imperial expansion. The historical assessment of Shaka Zulu remains deeply contested. On one hand, he was a military genius and the architect of a centralized African state that dramatically reshaped the balance of power in southeastern Africa. On the other, evidence suggests that his authority rested on extreme violence against Bantu populations, driven more by personal ambition than by any deliberate resistance to European colonialism, which had not yet become an existential threat during his lifetime. Thus, Shaka endures in historical memory as both a foundational African leader who forged a powerful kingdom and a ruthless warlord whose rise and fall were inseparable from bloodshed, leaving behind a legacy too complex to be reduced to a single image. Don't forget to subscribe. See you next time.